What up, y'all, and welcome to another episode of In the Studio with FM. Now, this has probably been the most requested video on my channel ever. So I figured I would make a walkthrough of my track Don't Talk About It featuring Neon Hitch. Now, a short story about the track. It came out last year on Trap Nation Lowly Palace, and I guess a lot of you people are here because you know the track from Trap Nation. Let's be honest, I know a lot of you guys are here because you want the Serum presets. Okay, so when this video hits 1,000 likes, I'm gonna give you guys the Serum presets of both drops. So 1,000 likes, thumbs up down below, and I'll give the Serum presets for both drops. Now, without further ado, let's hop into the computer. Let me show you guys how I did the track Don't Talk About It. Welcome to the Logic project of Don't Talk About It. Now, I want to do a quick walkthrough just to show you guys how I did the track and how I did everything. Now, I'm not going to go in depth with mixing as I'm currently working on another video about my mixing. So, to start with, I've grouped everything here. And you can see I got the vocals here. And I didn't really process them at all, actually, except for a little bit of reverb. But I'm not going to go in depth with the vocals because they're already processed and they are sounding great from what.
We don't speak, just fucking he lives cause we ain't trying to be.
Like when I got these vocals, they were a cappella and I heard them and I was just like, whoa, I have to work with these. Now, seeing they were 90 BPM, I chose to go with a half tempo kind of hip-hoppy vibe. Just to create something different, because Neon's vocals are nothing ordinary. Like, they sound really special, so I wanted to give the track kind of a special vibe and let the vocal carry the track more than you would with a regular pop song. So, I've grouped everything here in leads, drums, bass, FX, chants, drums, and the drop leads. Now, let's start with the leads here on the verse. Now, first of all, the verse sounds like this.
We don't speak, just fucking he lives cause we ain't trying to be something that we ain't meant to be. We don't talk.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to let the vocals really carry this track. So, the leads sound like this. It's pretty basic, actually. You have this, like a re-space type thing. Now, I automated some glides in here with the Logic pitch bending thing, and then I went in my Serum preset and I turned the range, the bend range to 12 up and down. That means whenever it glides here, it glides a lot, an octave down. So that gives it a really cool like hip-hoppy effect. And also, now this track is really affected by the fact that when I started working on this track, it was right when Output released the analog strings plugin for Contact, so I used a lot of strings in this song. Some really like glidey, unique sounding weird chords I did here, and I mixed them really low actually, also with the fills here. Like, I wanted the vocals to be the main focus of the track here. So I mixed everything pretty low, actually.
No, we don't speak. It's cause we ain't trying to be.
Now, on this part here, it would sound too basic with just the lead and the vocal. So I had a lot of ambience and effect samples here. classic trap brass stab. Yeah, that's the effects and the ambience of the verse. Now on the verse, let's go ahead to the next part, which sounds like this.
Don't talk about it. I'm ready to the talking. I'm being serious. You look so good in my bed, baby. Don't think it's serious. I've been building my throne and I did it alone. If you are curious.
So once again, I tried to make the vocal carry the track here. Actually, I don't have any sort of lead instrument at all. The track is like carried by the vocal, the drums, and the 808s. So let's start with the drums here. They sound like this. Really slow, obviously, but they are carried by like a hip-hoppy type kick and a lot of reverby snares and hits in here. Now let's start with the kick here, just going through them all. For once in a track, I actually have only one kick here. When I do these hip-hop drums, I choose kicks that doesn't have a lot of high end, so I want it to be really boomy in the low end and have like a big hit around 100 to 150 hertz to give it that really hip-hoppy feel. So it sounds like this. Yeah. And then for snares, we have the classic trap hip-hop snare. Yeah. Now if you don't have the sample, you can find it everywhere. Just search for trap snare. And I layered that with a tonal snare. From the Akali sample pack. Shout out to Akali. And another one, which is on the 1 and 3. The Jack U snare. And then I used the sample delay plugin here just to widen it out. So you get wide hits every other snare. So it sounds like this. Now, I also have a lot of like crashes, hats, and everything just to get the bounce right, if you know what I mean. So all my samples here, it's just basically just a bunch of loops that I downloaded on Splice and chopped up. So it sounds like this. Yeah, now the main key here is that it's all pretty spacey and it still allows the kicks and the snares to come through. So that's it for the drums on the verse. Let's move on to the 808s on the verse. Now this was made a year ago and I actually have different ways of doing 808s now. But when this was made, I had great pleasure in using the 808 Warfare plugin from damn, who made the plugin? I don't know. Oh, so I had great use of the 808 Warfare plugin here, and this is just a standard sub 808. There's nothing to it. So let's hear it without the plugins over here. It sounds like this. So it's basically a little bit of attack and then just a lot of sub and a lot of decay. So I put Max Bass on it, which is a plugin from Waves that you can use to emphasize different elements and frequencies of your bass. I used a preset called Aggressive and tweaked it a little bit to match the frequency of my bass hits. Now, this brings out a lot of mid-range in the 808. And I also EQ'd it and gave it some more sub 7.5 dB, which might be a little bit too much, let's be honest here. Slight compression and effect tricks to get that what's it called, like the vinyl break effect thing. You can see when it reaches the green one, it slows down. Now initially I made this bass and I was like, the mid-range of the bass is not coming through enough. Now you could EQ yourself out of this, but I like to do something else. I like to either bounce this out and do another version of the same bass, but low cut it and distort it. But I did something different here. Now, I took a bass from this plugin called Chord Player. I low cut it. Wow, this is a funky looking EQ. Alright, so I low cutted it and then I bit crushed it. So it sounds like this. So really not a really pleasant sound, but if you, let's say you hear the song on a laptop, you're not going to be able to hear only this sub bass. So I had to bring out the mids so they sound like this. So let's try to just hear the drums in the 808s here, just so you get a feel of what I'm talking about with the mid-range. Yep. Let's see here. I have some chants on the verse. They kind of work as like drum emphasizers here. So you have the bah on the kicks and you have the hey on the snare, which makes everything sound bigger. Let me try to play the chants and the drums together. Alright, so let's move on to the drop here. Now, let me just play you guys the build-up. Basically, the build-up has the same instruments.
Just fucking he lives cause we ain't trying. No, be something that we ain't meant to be. We don't talk about it, don't talk about it. Oh, we don't need to talk about it, don't talk about it.
Now, what we have going on here is basically the same instrumentation as the first 8 bars. Now, we have the bass, the strings, the bum, and then I layered a piano with some chords on top of it. So everything together sounds like this. And for drums in the break, I don't really have much going on except the snare here. Like a subtle Ikali loop down here. And then the build. Yep. Another thing about this build-up is that I used on the master channel strip here. When I did this track, I also just got the plugin that Dada Life did called Endless Smile. And this is a really fun plugin. So you put it on your, either an instrument or I actually used it on the master channel here. So during the build-up, I automated it so that the intensity of the plugin, which is like a one knob thing, rises along with the build-up. So you can see the knob here changing.
Don't talk about it, don't talk about it. Oh, we don't need to talk about it, don't talk about it.
And then down again. Now, just to give you guys an example of what a fully colored signal would sound like, let me just turn it all the way up here so you can hear it.
Don't talk about it, don't talk about it.
It is kind of a shortcut thing, but this plugin is really good if you want to like do your build-ups and give them a bit more intensity. Now, let's move on to the part here that I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for. The drop. Alright, so that is the drop. Now, for once in a project, I don't think I've ever done this, but I actually used the same drum sounds from the break or the verses in the drop. Yeah, pretty simple actually. I added another snare to the to the drop that just gives it a bit more character. Like a really sharp and attacky snare. Now what I did different with the drums here is that I have a lot of chants and percussion sounds that drives the drums as well. So let me just play you guys the chants and percussion here.
Okay.
So you have a lot of chants that emphasizes the kicks and snares and the rhythms in the track. A lot of them are processed really basic. Like you have a sample delay to spread the sample out. You have a sound shifter just to have it in pitch or either pitch it up and down. And you have a space designer to give it some reverb. Now for percussion sounds, I usually layer my kicks on the drops with stomps. And I low cut the stomps to make the kick punch more. So, for an example, this stomp right here. This is really good if you want to put an emphasis on individual kicks in your drop. So you have like your main kick go boom, boom, boom. Then you can have the stomp go boom, boom. So it only emphasizes the kicks that matter, if you know what I mean. This is a really clever way to implement some sort of bounce in your track. And I also have like a bunch of short risers and different percussive elements in the track here. So let's move on to the actual part of the drop that matters the most. The drop sound. Now, my drop sound sounds like this. Such a weird sound, I know. Now, I made this one in Serum. While I was browsing presets, I found like a bass type sound. And I played around with it for so long. The thing that matters most about this preset is that whenever I play a note here on the keyboard, the LFO changes a lot of stuff. But the most important part here is the attack of the lead sound. That is what makes this lead sound, because you have this really short attack, but still you have it kind of sweep up. So if I were to change the LFO here, just let me take the 1 for example. Let's change it up and hear how it sounds. So the LFO kind of makes a sound here. Now, the most important part of this lead sound might actually be the post-processing. Because without it, this sound would sound like this. So you hear it's really low MIDI and really vague. Now, I have an EQ on here, which brings up the high ends and low cuts it 100 Hz, which I do with all sounds basically, except my kick and bass. Now, I have the one knob fader plugin from Waves. I wouldn't really recommend using this plugin a lot, but sometimes when you have a thin sound, it's really good to add like a subtle layer of the mid-range here. Now I have the space designer from Logic, just a stock reverb here. I have the one knob pumper from Waves, and if you've seen any of my tutorials, this might be my favorite plugin. It's like a sidechain plugin for lazy producers, but it makes your preset bounce. And even though my drums are not 4/4 pattern wise, it can really make a sound bounce a lot. Now let's move it on here. I got the one knob brighter, which just adds a subtle bit of high end to the sound. Some compression. I have the dimension expander, just to give it a bit more width without overdoing the whole stereo thing. Because now I hear this a lot in other tracks where a producer would take the sound and thinking that it needs to be so wide, like really absurdly wide, and when it plays out at a show in mono on a big stereo, it sounds terrible. So try to know what you're doing before just putting a spreader on everything, because I used to do that a lot and it sucked. Now another favorite plugin of mine is the OTT from Xepher. Just a really subtle bit of depth here can really change your sound. Let's hear it without the OTT on. And with the OTT. Yeah. After all these plugins, I felt the need to EQ it a bit further. Took a bit out of low mids and added a bit of mid highs and highs here. Bam! And that is the lead sound of the first drop. Now, let's move on to the second drop. I did a typical producer thing here, which is that I didn't want to keep the first drop for the second one as well. I had to do something different to show off my producer skills. You already know how it goes. You got to do a different drop on the second one if you want to keep people interested and keep people listening to the song. So, the second drop sounds like this. Yep, the drum 808s and everything here is basically the same as the first drop, except I added a few more ambiences and sweeps and impacts. So you have like a Serum playing and stuff. Let me play you everything without the lead here. Yep, so you have like a bunch of different snare fills, rolls, chants, effects, things panning from left to right. Because I wanted the lead to be in focus, but I still wanted the track to sound detailed, if you know what I mean. And I think this is a thing that I tend to overdo in some of my tracks, like trying to squeeze as many effects and little details in as possible. And this is I think this is like a general producer, not a mistake, but a thing that we do too much. Like, we tend to overdo drops and hooks instead of just keeping it simple. So let's go over the drop lead from the second drop here. This is actually, it sounds pretty weird, but it's a super simple drop lead. It sounds like this. Let's go into Serum and see what I did. The funny thing is that this actually came from the old Cashmere Serum preset pack. And I mean, the sound doesn't really have anything to do with the Cashmere thing, but basically I think the Cashmere Sound Spooky was just like a basic one oscillator saw wave that was, I think the matrix was like the master tune was changed a bit with the envelope with a really short decay and no sustain. So what I did was I turned the unison all the way up, detuned it as much as possible. I changed the noise to the bright white. I added an oscillator B, which I turned up to 5 voices, and detuned it way too much as well. I kind of wanted to create that Say My Name kind of thing. If you don't know Say My Name, you should look him up. Like, everything is like screechy and really high pitched. And the thing that makes this sound is that I took the LFO here, turned it to trigger mode. I took the LFO here, dragged it over to semitone. So every time I play a note, it pitches like up and down an octave, which makes it sound really crazy. Now, what makes this sound unique is the reverb filter. I didn't really process it in Serum, except the reverb filter. Now, hear it without the reverb filter here. Such a weird fucking sound, but with the reverb filter, you turn the cutoff down. Around here, gave it a little bit of drive, and then you have a fucked up sound. Like, once again, this sound is made unique by the weird attack and the big portamento glide thing I got going on. So when you play it, it sounds like this. Yeah, such a weird sound. And yeah, you don't really need my preset. Like, you could just go ahead of what I just told you. It's so easy to make this one. 2 saw waves, you detune it a lot. and then you have your short envelope go to the master tune. Put the reverb filter on, that's it. Now let me show you the processing. It's actually almost the same processing as the previous drop lead, except for distortion, which I used the basic Logic distortion plugin and just gave it a little bit of pre-gain and a little bit of tone. Also have the transient designer from Native Instruments, and I turned the attack way up just to give it that clicky sound. So whenever you play a note, you get the cuck. Have a little bit of effectrix here just to emphasize the last notes. So I have a reverb going on. Let me just play it for you guys. So every time it hits this field here, the reverb kicks in and it gets really reverby on the long notes here. I also have this stab on the kick here. Yep, it's just a synth stab from my Vital Trap pack. Check out my samples on Splice if you haven't. Elixir. So of course my camera went ahead and cut off right when I was recording, but I think I explained the whole track. Now, if there is anything that I left out or anything you want me to elaborate, comment down below and I'll do my best to answer everything. Now, thank you guys so much for watching another episode. Let me know what I should do next, and I'll see you guys in the next one. 1,000 likes, thumbs up, peace!